Hi guys. Finally we are doing this. I think you are we starting again? Jeez, babe. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go, team. And finally I made up my mind and I'm in front of the camera, so yay! Woo! Yes, so today I want to talk about my driving experience. I just want to share my story, and I hope it encourages someone and you get to learn something out of it. So let's do this. Here's my story. So the year is 2022. You remember in 2020 and 2021, most people worked from home because of COVID. And in 2022, we were asked to go back to office. And I'm not a morning person, so you can just imagine the hassle of getting up in the morning, taking a matatu and going to work. That was really hectic for me. And sometimes I used to use motorbikes just to get to work in good time because I was supposed to be at work at 9 a.m. and most of the time I woke up at 8:30. So sometimes my friend Maureen would come pick me up. Shout out to you, Maureen. You're the best. And that was really helpful. And I remember one day my work supervisor was like, Julie, you need to get yourself a small car. Pretty girls have cute cars. And I just thought to myself, this is something I can do. But at that time, I think my mindset was like, I don't think I can buy a car before I build a house. And this is the mentality that most people hold. And at that time, I also didn't have enough cash to just go to the bank, withdraw it, and get a car for myself. So I sat with that thought for a few months, and one day in June 2022, I woke up in the morning. I was like, you know what? I want a car. So as I was going back home, I spotted a new driving school just near where I used to stay. And I was like, this is the perfect opportunity for me to start my driving classes because, again, it's not very far from home. So I can just wake up in the morning and go for my classes. So I went to the driving school. I asked about the options they provide and the fee structure. And they told me that they are willing to allow someone to pay in installments for the classes. And I was like, I feel like this really matches my financial situation at that point. Remember, I was like, I want to buy a car, but then I didn't have the money. And here I am signing up for a class. And yeah, I listened to what the receptionist told me about the different classes that they offer. Because I felt like automatic is so simple and I'm a sharp girl. So I was like, I'll do the manual. So I signed up, I started my classes. The classes were supposed to run for a month. So the first 2 weeks you would do theory, and then on the second week you would do theory and practical. So I started the classes, and the theory part was really interesting. Funny thing, I thought I knew so much about cars. Turns out I didn't know anything. I kept saying wheels, and the teacher would correct me every time to tell me, no, they're not wheels, they're tires. Anyway, I really loved the theory classes. They were really nice. But now the practical, oh my God, driving a manual car is so hectic. Like balancing the clutch and the brakes and everything was so difficult. And I feel like I didn't have the best experience with my practical lessons because the teacher that was teaching practicals wasn't very patient, and I think he had that mentality of women do not know how to drive manual cars. And so every practical lesson was so painful and hectic for me, but it got to a point I was like, no, I don't think I can do this anymore. So I just had a conversation with the teacher and told him that you need to chill. I'm here to learn. I came to school because I do not know how to drive, so just be patient and show me what needs to be done. And I'm so happy I had that conversation with him, because eventually our relationship improved, and yeah, I was able to learn a few things here and there on how to drive a manual car. We'll come back to manual cars later on. So yeah, here I am. I've started my classes. They're going on well. So I start checking out for cars online, and a friend of mine recommended a certain site where I would check for different cars just to gauge how much I could afford and the type of car I would want for myself. Anyway, this is my first car, so I wasn't going to splurge on buying a car. And again, you remember, like, most people tell you that you cannot buy a car if you haven't built yet. So I was really battling with that, but I was like, I know I really need a car. And I just made that decision. So I went on this website. I can't remember the name. I'll put it on the screen once I check after recording this video. I've remembered. The website is called SBT. So every day I would go to SBT and just check different cars. But to be honest, I didn't understand the nitty-gritties on what people check. I would check the mileage and the color of the car, and I knew I wanted a black car. So that's all I knew. The good thing, I had people who held my hand all through that process. So shout out to you, Bet. You really saved me. So she helped me with the process once I identified the car that I wanted. She also consulted other people to just check that we are getting something that is legit, because again, we were considering importation, because importation was way cheaper than buying a car that is already in Kenya. So the only thing that I did was make the payments in the bank, and she did the other logistics to get the car to come to Nairobi. And I would just want to be honest with everyone. For me, I took a loan to get my car, but before taking that loan, I had already thought about the repayment process, and I felt like the repayment process that I considered was favorable for me. So yeah, that was the option that I went with. And to be honest, if you want to get yourself a car, just do it, honestly, because people will tell you all sorts of things. But if you know you have steady income and you can pay a loan to buy a car, go for it. If you also feel like taking a loan to buy a car isn't the wisest decision for you, well and good. But I remember before making that decision, I read a book by Florence Bett. She's a Kenyan author. She writes about finances, and she talks about buying cars on a loan. And I feel like reading that book solidified my decision, so I went for it. Yeah, so I continue with my lessons, and the exams come. So we go to NTSA, and that whole process, examination process, was, I don't know, I just feel like the examination process for driving is so difficult, and it can be dehumanizing, because the way the examination is done, especially here in Nairobi, is just chaotic. There are so many people doing the exams, and I can try to understand why the NTSA officers are like quick and harsh, because during the examination period, what happens, for the theory, you're given like 2 minutes, and within that 2 minutes, you're given a test on the MBTI. I can't remember that board. I'll MBT.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
MT on MTB, yes, Model Town Board. So during the exams, you are given 2 minutes to respond to the different signs that the NTSA officer is pointing at. So there is a chart and they just point at different signs and you need to say what those signs mean. And then if you confuse, that's it. Like there were people who were asked to, they are doing this thing so quickly. So there were people who are being asked, which one is this? Which one is this? And because they are tense and all that, if like for some of them, they would miss to mention what those signs meant, and they will just be told, go back home, you've not read and all that. And yeah, that was sad to see. And for me, I remember like my confidence was up there. There was a sign I didn't know, but I just guessed and said something because I was like, I don't think I want to go through this process again. And then after that, you're taken to the MTB, the Model Town Board, and then given a test, and you're told, take this car from this point to this other point. It's a whole thing. If you've done driving classes, you know how it goes. So you only have 2 minutes for all that, the science and the MTB, and also some theoretical questions that are just thrown at any point. And then after that, you are taken outside for practicals. You remember I said I do not want to do automatic. I want to drive a manual car. So for the practical, we were given this big matatu. And was it? No. You remember for the choice of course, I chose a manual car instead of an automatic car. So for this test, usually you are told to use your school's vehicle. And on that day, my school vehicle, like I was used to driving a small car, but on that day we used a big car because the school offered to take us to the NTSA offices where the exams were being done. Oh my God, and this was the most difficult thing that I ever did. So it was my turn to do the practical exams. So we get into the car with the examiner. He sits on the on the passenger seat, and then he's like, turn on the car. I just turn on the car and it jumps. I think I didn't balance the clutch and the gear or something, the brakes. And yeah, it was chaotic. And I begged, I told the examiner, I know how to drive a car, please don't fail me. And he was like, I'm giving you the last chance to prove yourself. So I tried again and I was able to move the car a little, and he was like, oh, I can see you know how to balance. So I'm okay with that. And I was like, I really hope I've passed these exams, because again, for NTSA, you can't really tell if you've passed or not, because you wait for the results to be processed, and then you'll just go to eCitizen and check whether you passed or not. So yeah, that was my whole driving experience. You remember I went to school and then I started the process of importing a car. So now we are in July. I have made the payment. The importation process has started. And in around August, September, the car arrived in Mombasa, and somebody also helped me bring the car to Nairobi. I just sorted the KRA stuff, paid the money to the bank, and then got an insurance, and then the car was brought to me. Now the car is in Nairobi. I'm so excited. I'm like, oh, I now want to drive. And I remember the car came like on a Thursday, and I couldn't do anything. Like I was so scared. I remember at one point, so the car was brought to where I was working, like at the office. So in the evening, I was supposed to take the car from the office back to now home. And I remember I was so tense. I couldn't do it. And on that day again, I just took a bike home. Uh, and this continued for like 5 days. The car was still at the office parking. I couldn't do it. I was so scared. And then I remember 2 times I tried to drive it out of the office, and I kept knocking the gate. So my friend Beth was like, "No, I don't think you're ready to drive this car. So let's just give it time. We can practice slowly, and then once you gain your confidence, we can you can take the car home." So I was like, cool. And I remember I was so frustrated at that time. I was like, will I ever know how to drive the car properly? Um, and then it was just terrifying because, again, Nairobi roads and the matatu and the harassment that happens on the road, especially when you're a woman. It's just hectic, honestly. Yeah. So on a Sunday, I remember my friend Brenda came home. So I told her, "Hey, the car is here, but I'm so afraid of driving it." So my friend Brenda came home and she was like, "You are a joker. Like, we have to go take the car from the office and drive it." And she said she's not going to drive the car. And she's a really good driver. So on that day, I was like, okay, I trust you. And she said, because at that time I had problems with corners. So she was like, I'll help you. When we got to corners, I'll direct you on what needs to be done. I don't know why I kept turning the whole steering wheel when we got to corners. But yeah, that's what I used to do. And at one point, we almost entered like a ditch because I didn't know how far the wheel needs to be turned. So Brenda came on that Sunday. We drove the car. We went to Southern Bypass, and on a straight line, like on a straight road, I would drive so well. But when it came to corners, it was chaotic. But yeah, I'm really happy that I pushed myself to do that. I made a few mistakes here and there, but anyway, that day came and went. I didn't die. And then Brenda was like, I'll come tomorrow. Now the next day was on a Monday. I'll come tomorrow and I'll pick you, I'll go with you to work, as I also had to work, I think, or at that time she was doing exercises in the morning. Yeah, so she came in the morning to pick me so that we go to my workstation together. So we leave the house, I drive well, we go to work, and then on that day I remember we were told report to the office, and then we were having a conference at Doubletree. So Brenda left me at my workstation and she went back home. And once I was done with what I was required to do at the office, I needed to go to Doubletree. So I told myself, now I'm on my own. I have to take this car to Doubletree because I can't leave it at the office. I challenged myself. I was able to get to Doubletree. Parking was a huge problem. It still is, but yeah, I'm learning every day. It's like 2 years, 1 year later, and yeah, I'm still learning. So I get to the parking, I try my best, I park the car, and then I go to the conference that we had. And in the evening, Brenda had told me she'll come pick me up. But that was a trick. She didn't come back. I knew she had classes in the evening, and I was hopeful that she would come, but she didn't come. And I remember I was so stressed the whole afternoon and the evening. And then I talked to my friend Beverly, who was also at the conference. I told her, Beverly, today I'm alone and I don't know how to do this. Please, as you drive your car, you can follow me at the back, or I'll follow you at the front, so that in case anything happens, I know at least I have someone who is my friend who will just come and help me. So on this day, in the evening, I leave Doubletree going back home. And it wasn't the smoothest ride. So I'm on the road and then it starts raining. Remember when I was doing my classes, I don't remember being taught about wipers and turning on the lights. Oh my god, this was the most chaotic day. I remember I couldn't even remember that in class we've been told if you're going slowly you should be on the left. I was on the right side of the road and I was driving so slowly, I think at 10 kilometers per hour on the right side of the road, and I didn't know how to turn on the wipers. So it got to a point where the rain was too much and I kept stopping the car and putting the hazard, and then I would wipe the the windscreen with my coat because it was fogging up and I don't know where I need to turn on the, what are they called? I've forgotten the name. What's the name of the things that we no, the ones that, yeah, so I needed to turn on the air conditioner, but I didn't know, and I was so afraid of turning on anything in the car because at one point I had asked someone to show me how to drive, and this man just kept on feeding fear because he was like, never press this place because when you press this place the car will move at a very high speed. So I was so afraid of pressing anything on that car. I don't know why people do that. Like, if you really want to teach someone, don't instill so much fear in them. Just show them how to do it in a better way, but don't instill fear in people. Yeah, so I remember on that day I was just crying and my neck was so stiff because I was just like this and moving at 10 kilometers per hour. It was chaotic, but eventually I got home. And when I got home on that day, I was like, now that I've done this on a rainy day, I will make it. Now I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to just let myself go through the process. And yeah, I'm so proud of myself. I did it. And I remember after a few days after that, you know, when you buy something new, you're always excited about that. I even started being a morning person. Now I would wake up very early in the morning to go to work because I enjoyed like the morning drives and the music in the car. It was really nice. And I remember one morning I went to Quick Mart in Kilimani. And to be honest, I wasn't even going to buy anything there. I just wanted to know if I could park well and then see how I can drive without like feeling pressured or anything. So I go to the supermarket, I just buy random things and then I come out, and when I was reversing the car to get out of the parking, guess what? I didn't know that the back part of the car was moving closer to somebody else's car. And guess which car that was? It was a BMW. I scratched somebody else's car. And the watchman at that place saw me, and the security guard, sorry, saw me at that place, and they came so quickly and they were like, Madam, rudisha gari mbele. And he quickly ran to the supermarket to announce that somebody's car has been scratched. So I just see this man walking, pacing so quickly to where I was, and he's like, what has happened? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, I've scratched your car. It wasn't like a bad scratch, because when the security guard went to the supermarket to call the owner of the car, I quickly got out of the car and checked the damage that I had done, and then tried to rub it and just see like the kind of damage that I had done. It was a new BMW, my friend, and I was here scratching somebody else's car with a demo. The good thing, I had the learner sign on the car, so he was like, no worries, I'll check for you to get out of the parking, to reverse well, and don't scratch the car again. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so grateful for this man. Because again, at that point I didn't know the process of, like, in case you scratch somebody else's car, what you need to do. I honestly didn't know all that. Yeah, so I was able to get myself out of that situation and I went to work. And then I also remember I had another instance on Mombasa Road. You know how chaotic Mombasa Road can be when there's a lot of traffic. So at one point I was trying to move to the right side because that lane was moving, but I wasn't very fast. And the moment I just started turning the wheel, there was a lorry that was coming at a very high speed, which just I don't know, how can I put it? Just crashed like one side of the car. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? I didn't come out of the car. At that point, I was like, I'm determined to get home. And once I get home, that's when I will check what has happened to the car because, again, it was moving. And this lorry driver just sped off and went. So there was nothing much I could do. I was tense. I didn't see the number plate. Like, I didn't see anything. Yeah, but anyway, I had like very different instances where I made so many mistakes with the driving, but I got to a point where I was like, I know I feel bad that the car is getting all these scratches and everything, but that's the learning process. So I just let myself go through that process. And right now I feel so confident in my driving. That's not the only time I've had, those are not the only times I've had like accidents. I've also at one point I was trying to drive out of Social House. You know how the gate is. It's not a very good place to turn, and a motorbike person just came and we got into an accident. So like these things happen, and I feel like people need to give themselves grace because, again, it's a learning process. You can't say that because I've started driving today, by next week on Friday I should be perfect in this. You learn every day, especially in these Nairobi roads. I still get anxious when I'm driving on the road, but I extend grace to myself because, again, if you don't do that, who will? But anyway, that's my story. I hope it encourages you who is anxious about driving to drive. And yeah, you get to see yourself trying new challenges and new things and new beginnings. And yeah, that's my story. So thank you for listening and see you on the next one. Bye.